The Cambion Drift is an open world zone swarming with the infested on Deimos, where you can participate in mining, fishing, beast conservation, bounties, and encountering the notable Necramechs. There are two syndicates related to the Cambion Drift, known as the Entrati family and Necraloid, which are reputation grinds that you have to rank up with in order to access what this open world offers. These syndicates can be found on Necralisk, which is the social hub for the Cambion Drift. The reason for ranking up with these syndicates and doing this open world zone is to get access to cosmetics, mods, weapons, frames, arcanes, the Helminth system, which allows you to subsume frames' abilities onto other frames, modular companions, kitgun parts, and your very own Necramech. Before you start an open world zone like the Cambion Drift, it is important to note that this should be considered endgame content. You should have a wide variety of upgraded mods, defensive and offensive frames with decent builds, obtain at least Mastery Rank 5 or higher, have spent some time in Warframe's previous open worlds on Earth and Venus, and be done with the quests, most notably the Second Dream and the War Within questlines. All open worlds in Warframe have similar activities, with bounties, ranking up syndicates, mining, fishing, and beast conservation being present throughout each one. The Cambion Drift has all of these, but the syndicates and resources from these activities are unique to this open world. In this guide, I will not be covering how to do conservation, mining, or fishing, as I covered this in my guide for Venus and Earth's open world zones. I encourage you to check out those guides if you want more details on how open worlds operate in Warframe, as it is essentially the same process for every open world. I will, however, give some tips for those activities, and will be going into detail about what makes the Cambion Drift unique. Before you can enter the Cambion Drift, you must complete the Mars Junction to unlock the quest The Heart of Deimos. To activate the quest, you must clear a path to Deimos' Cambion Drift, which requires the quest to enter. The quest will introduce you to this open world, the NPCs you will be interacting with, some of the bounties you will encounter, and even lets you temporarily test out a Necramech. Once you have completed this quest, you will be rewarded with the blueprint for the frame Zaku, and the Necralisk vendors and syndicates, the Entrati and Necraloid, will now be open to you. Unlike Ostron on Cetus and Solaris United on Fortuna, the Entrati family requires tokens given by the members of this syndicate to gain both standing points and to reach the next rank with the Entrati. Each member provides tokens, with the Sun, who deals in creating modular companions and beast conservation, requires the tags from captured beasts to trade in for his Sun tokens. Otak, who sells refined mining blueprints, requires mining materials from the open world to trade for Otak tokens. The Daughter, who deals in fishing supplies and cutting fish for the unique resources, requires these resources to trade in for her Daughter tokens. The Father, who builds kitguns, sells kitgun parts, the Lavos frame, mods, and weapons, requires resources gained from the open world to trade for Father tokens. The Mother, who you will interact with to rank up with the Entrati, will offer bounties that, when completed, will reward Mother tokens. And the Grandmother, who sells all previously mentioned tokens in exchange for a mix of resources and requires the previously mentioned tokens to obtain her Grandmother tokens. The Grandmother tokens can also be exchanged to buy cosmetic and decorative items, along with the Seriglass shard, which will be needed to reach the last rank with the Entrati. All of these tokens can also be traded in with the Grandmother to gain standing points with the Entrati Syndicate itself. To efficiently gain standing with the Entrati, it is recommended to repeat bounties given by the Mother for her tokens, as the Tier 5 bounty will give you around 150 Mother tokens per run that can be traded in with the Grandmother to quickly max out your daily standing. It is not recommended to trade in the other tokens for standing points, as you will need quite a few of each to trade in for Grandmother's tokens, with 20 needed to buy a Seriglass shard. It is important to note that each vendor's offers in exchange for tokens will cycle every few hours. If you don't have the required resources to trade, come back in a few hours and see if new selections are offered. Additionally, the vendors in Necralisk will require Entrati standing points to purchase their wares, and more of their merchandise will become available to you the higher your rank is with this syndicate. In addition to tokens and standing points to reach the next rank with the Entrati, you will also need a handful of resources, items, and blueprints either obtained from the open world itself or bought from the vendors in the Necralisk. Mining and fishing is essentially the same on the Cambion Drift compared to Warframe's other open worlds. With mining, you can use any of your previously obtained mining equipment from Warframe's other open worlds. And with fishing, you can use any fishing spear you have to catch fish that are above ground. But the only difference is that fish are not home to bodies of water, but instead can bury themselves in the exocrine. To efficiently fish on this open world and penetrate the exocrine, you will need an infested fishing spear, which is initially available to you for 500 standing points from the daughter vendor. The Warframe wiki will break down each fish's respective biome, the bait required to catch them, and what cycle they can appear in. Instead of a day and night or warm and cold weather cycle, the Cambion drift will transition between the Fass and Vome cycles depending on which infested worm is currently in the background. The Fass cycle lasts for 100 minutes and the Vome cycle lasts for just 50 minutes. You can view what cycle you are in by opening your map or before entering the Cambion drift on your star chart. In addition to the fish being affected by this cycle, the open world will have either foam or Fass residue scattered throughout the map. These residues can be destroyed and picked up, and when obtained can be used as bait for fishing. The reason for fishing and cutting these fish for their unique resources is not only for daughter tokens, but many blueprints will require fish parts in order to build them in your foundry. In addition, the fish Vitrospenia and Chondricord, when cut, will provide spinal core sections, which will be needed to reach rank 1 with the Entrati. These fish can be found in caves in either cycle, but require either the Fass or Vome bait and can be more reliably found in hotspots, with hotspots being identified by an aurora that hovers above the exocrine. Rank 2 with the Entrati will require tokens and buying the Keratinos blades and gauntlet blueprint, which are initially available to you from Father for 500 standing points each. These blueprints do not need to be built in your foundry, you just need to turn the blueprint in to reach the next rank. Rank 3 will require tokens, but will also require tags acquired from beast conservation. You can use your previously obtained trank rifle you got from Fortuna, or you can buy a trank rifle from the Sun, which is initially available to you for 500 standing points. Like with fishing, some beasts can only be found during the Vome or Fass map cycles, and some require pheromones to capture rarer species of the beasts. To capture beasts, you will need their echo lures bought from the Sun, with the two most notably being the Predesaite Echo Lure, which is available at rank 1 for 1000 standing points, and the Avice Echo Lure, which is available at rank 2 for 2000 standing points. For Avice, you will not need a pheromone to get their common tags, but for the Medj Predesaite tag, you will need a Predesaite pheromone gland for a chance at obtaining a rarer variant of the beast, which is available at rank 1 for 150 standing points each. Just remember to use your pheromone during the calling process of hunting down your beast. And make sure to reference the wiki for more information on beast and fish and how to capture them. Rank 4 will require tokens, but will also require fully built mutagens, with the blueprints being sold by the Sun. The Zerum and Areoli blueprints can be bought when reaching rank 3 for 4000 standing points each. To build these blueprints, you will need more spinal core sections and tubercular gill systems, which can be cut from many common fish. And you will also need resources from the open world itself. Besides Vome and Fass residue, ganglion, pustulite, and lucent terraglobes can be found throughout the open world and even in some containers. If you are after any of these resources, keep in mind that queuing for the highest tier bounty will increase the amount each of these containers give when destroyed. Keep note that by doing Mother's bounties, you will most likely obtain large amounts of these resources, making it not necessary to go out of your way to farm for them. The Cambion drift is unique in that it offers alternative ways to obtain mining, fishing, and the open world resources. There are many containers throughout the Cambion drift that when destroyed will have a chance to drop these resources. There are also obelisks found throughout the open world with a Requiem symbol. These obelisks can be activated by void damage done by your operator. Each symbol applies different effects to the infested enemies that will spawn near the obelisk. When affected and killed by either your operator or a Necramech, the obelisk will drop a mix of mining, fishing, and open world resources. On the wiki, you can view how each of these symbols affect the infested enemies, with some effects being better than others. Generally, form, time, light, and order are the best symbols, as they apply an effect to the infested that you can then easily kill with your operator. Chaos, void, and decay usually take too long to kill the infested, making it a less effective way to gain resources. When these obelisks are activated, they will last 90 seconds and have a 12-second cooldown. The infested enemies that spawn around it will spawn in groups of 3 up to 4 times. After they are all destroyed, they will have a cooldown of 10 minutes before they will spawn again. If you farm for resources this way, do these obelisks until completed, head back to the Necralisk, and rinse and repeat. These obelisks can be a great way to get resources, but are not a great source for rarer resources, which you might still need to either fish or mine for. Like with Warframe's other open worlds, all mining, fishing, and open world resources from the Cambion Drift will be used in a variety of blueprints built in your foundry. You should make it a priority to buy each reusable blueprint when you reach the required rank from each of Necralisk's vendors, and make sure to view the wiki for each of these resources to see what blueprints require them to make. And finally, rank 5 with the Entrati will require tokens and the previously mentioned Seriglass shard, which can be purchased from the grandmother for 20 grandmother tokens. Her tokens can be obtained by trading in all previously mentioned tokens. The other syndicate found on the Necralisk can only be accessed by your operator, which requires the Heart of Deimos and the War Within quest lines to be completed. This syndicate can be found to the left of the Mother, in a room that will only open up to you in your operator form. Inside you will find Lloyd, which is the main NPC you will interact with for the syndicate Necraloid. Here you can view Lloyd's offers and exchange for Necraloid standing points, including blueprints for the Necramechs Bone Widow and Void Rig, blueprints for 2 Arc Guns, mods for your Necramech, and cosmetic items. The max rank you can achieve with Necraloid is rank 3, requiring Orokin Matrices in exchange for standing points. The only way to obtain these Matrices is by completing Isolation Vaults, which are bounties offered by the Mother. Isolation Vaults are fairly straightforward bounties that, when started, require you to find either the Vome or Fass residue, create a bait, and protect it. Grab the bait when completed, and follow the objective to a cave, using your secondary fire button to throw the bait at the entrance. Once inside, survive for a short while making sure to kill marked enemies to keep your toxicity levels down. Once finished, proceed deeper into the cave to find the vault protected by a Necramech. Necramechs are invulnerable on their entire body except for their left and right shoulders and a glowing blue scar on their backs. By shooting at their shoulders, you can rip off their arms, which will reveal the vulnerable blue scar. However, if the Necramechs are not defeated fast enough, they will reattach their arms. And these enemies have their own abilities that can do massive amounts of damage to the player. To effectively defeat a Necramech, it requires some preparation in your arsenal. Keep note that there is not a correct way to defeat a Necramech, and you should use whatever you find works for you. Necramechs are weak to magnetic, blast, and radiation damage types. I personally find modding my weapons for radiation to be the most effective against Necramechs. Using high-powered rifles such as the Rubico Prime, modded for high total damage, multi-shot, critical chance and damage, and radiation. Additionally, weapons with or modded for punch-through and melee weapons with follow-through can be very effective against the Necramech, in that shooting their weak points with said weapons will pass through to their additional weak spots. Gunblades like the Stropha or Redeemer Prime, or primaries like the Arcoplasmor can be effective if modded properly. You can view the wiki's page on punch-through weapons and see what works for you. Additionally, if you have a Gravamag installed on an Arc Gun that is modded for the Prophet Taker fight on Orb Valis, you can deploy that weapon during this fight against the Necramechs. Any frame that increases your survivability or damage dealt should be used. You can use your same Chroma build from the Prophet Taker fight on Orb Valis for surviving the Necramechs. Rhino can also be a great choice for his Iron Skin ability to protect you and his Stomp ability, which can freeze a Necramech, making it easier to damage their weak points. Revenant is also a great choice for his survivability from his second ability. And if you are playing solo, it is not recommended to use a stealth-based frame, as the Necramechs can cancel this ability. If you do use a stealth-based frame, Octavia's Nocturne buff from her Metronome ability is the only stealth-based ability that will not be cancelled. Make sure that whatever weapon you bring to deal with the Necramechs, you also bring a weapon modded for gas or heat to deal with the infested, as these enemy types are primarily what you will be up against. The Necramechs have access to a handful of abilities that can be tricky to deal with the most troublesome coming from the Void Rig. The Void Rig will cast an ability that will slow any players in its radius. You can prevent this by first destroying its left arm. The Void Rig can also spew out mines that can cause massive amounts of damage that should be avoided. And their most harmful ability, Storm Shroud, identified by an electrical barrier, will absorb all damage taken for 3 seconds and reflect that damage back to the player. This barrier will last long enough until enough damage is done to it to destroy it. Try your best to survive, shoot their weak points, and the Necramechs should go down. Once down, the Necramechs will have a chance to drop Necramech mods, damaged Necramech parts, which you will need to build your very own Necramech, the resource Scintillant, and a 100% chance for an Orokin Matrix. Depending on the tier of Isolation Vault you accept for the Mother, it will determine how many Necramechs will spawn in an Isolation Vault and the type of Orokin Matrices they will drop. With the Tier 1 Isolation Vault spawning 1 Necramech that will drop an Orokin Orientation Matrix, Tier 2 spawning 2 Necramechs that will drop an Orokin Ballistics Matrix, and Tier 3 spawning 3 Necramechs that will drop an Orokin Animus Matrix. Keep note that the higher the tier the bounty is, it will mean the Necramech and infested enemies will be harder to kill. Additionally, if you bring a Necros frame for its Desecrate ability, and it is active when you defeat a Necramech, it will double the Orokin Matrix that drops. The Smita Kvet's Charm ability can also double the Matrix drop, but can be less reliable, betting on the chance that its Charm ability is currently active. And of course, resource boosters will also double the Orokin Matrices. Once you have defeated all Necramechs protecting the vault, a bonus objective will become available to you. Your goal is to find a vault door randomly generated somewhere within this vault. Once found, a crystal can be seen in the middle that can only be activated by your operator's void damage. Once damaged, Lloyd will spawn, and you must protect them while they roam around the vault to activate door keys. Once all keys are activated, Lloyd will return to the door, and for a brief moment, 4 Requiem symbols will appear as a pattern on the door. Your goal is to memorize this pattern from top to bottom, then hit the nearby crystals with your operator in the correct sequence. If you mess up the sequence, you will have 2 more chances to get it right. If you failed more than 3 times, the vault will become unavailable, failing the bonus objective. If you got the correct sequence, the vault door will open, and you will be rewarded with a drop from the pool table, and fishing, mining, and Cambion drift resources can be found inside. Once finished, you can leave the vault by finding a green marker that when interacted with will teleport you outside. Outside, the Mother NPC will be somewhere nearby the cave, and will offer additional bounties known as Arcana Bounties. These bounties can only be accessible after completing an Isolation Vault, and can be a great way to get rewards from the pool list that the Isolation Bounties offer. These bounties are unique in that they take place back inside the Isolation Vault, with some unique and familiar stages. Arcana Bounties have 4 stages. With each stage completed, you will get 1 reward from the pool list, versus Isolation Vaults only offering 1 reward and 1 bonus reward. The Arcana Bounties offer higher chances to earn these rewards, including Arcanes, mods, weapon parts, and damaged Necramech weapon parts for Necraloid sold Arc Guns. However, if you are after Orokin Matrices and damaged Necramech parts needed to make a Necramech, it is more efficient to repeat Isolation Vaults offered by Mother in the Necralisk than it is to do Arcana Bounties offered by the Mother in the Cambion Drift after completing an Isolation Vault. Once you have a collection of Orokin Matrices, you can start trading them in back with Lloyd for Necraloid standing points. To further your rank with Necraloid, it will require varying amounts of the different tiers of Orokin Matrices, Father tokens, weapon barrel blueprints, which can be bought from the Father for Entrati standing points, and void traces, which are mainly obtained by opening relics in the Void Fissures tab on the star chart. Deimos' open world is unique in that you can simultaneously rank up with both syndicates the Entrati and Necraloid at the same time. Isolation Vaults reward Mother tokens, which you can then turn in for Entrati standing points. And you will obtain Orokin Matrices by destroying Necramechs, which you can then turn in for Necraloid standing points. Although Isolation Vaults offer less Mother tokens than her Tier 5 bounty, but it can still be an efficient way to rank up with both syndicates. My personal recommendation would be when you reach rank 3 with the Entrati to start doing Isolation Vaults for Orokin Matrices. The reason being is that once you are rank 3, Father's Barrel blueprints required to rank up with Necraloid will become available to you. Keep note that these blueprints do not need to be built to reach the next rank with Necraloid. You just need to buy and turn in the blueprint. Once you are max rank with Necraloid, all of his offers will become available to you, including blueprints and mods to build your very own Necramech. For your first Necramech, most of the community would agree to focus on buying the Void Rig blueprints, since Void Rig is capable of offensive and defensive actions with useful abilities and long-range attacks. Bone Widow is a melee-oriented Necramech carrying a large sword and shield combo. Void Rig is generally a better multifunctional Necramech, but at some point you should try to build both. To build a Void Rig, it will require a casing, an engine, a capsule, and a weapon pod. To build each of these blueprints, it will require a damaged Necramech part of the same name. If you didn't acquire these damaged parts during your isolation vaults, you can alternatively buy them with platinum from other players on the Warframe.market site. These blueprints will also require a mix of mining, fishing, and other resources that are not limited to the Cambion drift itself. For example, the casing requires mining materials from Venus's orb Valus. This is why it is recommended to have spent some time in Warframe's previous open worlds, since in order to build your very own Necramech, it will take a mix of resources from different locations. For more details on each resource you will need to build both the Void Rig and Bone Widow, view their pages on the Warframe wiki. The other tricky resource needed to build the Necramech and many other blueprints is a resource called Scintillant. This resource is offered as a possible reward from Mother's Tier 1 and Tier 2 bounties. This resource can also have a chance to drop from any Necramechs, but more commonly can be found floating throughout an isolation vault. If you are after this resource, make sure you have the mod Loot Radar equipped, and complete an isolation vault like usual. Once done, spend some time searching around the vault for this floating resource. Alternatively, you can buy both Necramechs for platinum in the in-game market. Once your Necramech is fully built and obtained from your foundry, you will be given the ability to summon your Necramech that you can equip on your gear wheel. Necramechs can be summoned in all 3 of Warframe's open worlds, Conjunction survival missions available on Lua, and the grounded portion of Railjack missions given that you are rank 5 in your tactical intrinsics. Necramechs can be modded, customized, and can equip art guns under the Vehicles tab in your arsenal. Necramechs need to be leveled just like any other equipment in Warframe, requiring 5 Forma to hit their max rank of 40. And finally, the reason for building and acquiring a Necramech is so that you can finally access the questline The New War. This should cover everything on how to rank up and understand the Syndicate's Entrati and Necraloid. However, the Necralisk and the Cambion drift have a variety of items to obtain and activities to participate in, so here are some quick tips. Before we get to the modular companions built through the Sun vendor, it is recommended to get to rank 4 with the Entrati before considering building these customizable companions. The reason being is that you will need many resources cut from rare fish, with the baits for these fish only being available to you from the daughter once you are ranks 3 and 4. Additionally, all of the mutagen and antigen blueprints required to make these modular companions will be fully unlocked to you from the Sun at rank 4. There are 2 categories of companions you can make, with the Predesaite being similar to the Kubro companions, and the Vulpaphyla being similar to the Kvet companions. Each category of companion has 3 subspecies that, when made, will come with 2 mods unique to their species type. To build each of these subspecies, it will require beast conservation, with some of these beasts only being available during either the Vome or Fass map cycles, and some of them being easier to find using a pheromone gland during the calling process for a chance at capturing a rarer species of the beast. For the Predesaite, the visor can be found on either cycle and does not require a pheromone. The Pharaoh can be found during the Fass cycle, with a higher chance to spawn with a pheromone. And the Medjay can be found during the Vome cycle with a pheromone. For the Vulpaphyla, the Sly can be found in either cycle and does not require a pheromone. The Crescent can be found during the Vome cycle with a pheromone, and the Panzer can be found during the Fass cycle with a pheromone. For more information on these beasts and the requirements to catch them, view the Conservation Wiki. Additionally, it will not be enough to just find and capture these beasts. They will need to be in a weakened state, which can be done by infested enemies nearby who will attack them. Once you find the beast you are after, you can trank them and then lure the enemies towards your beast, which they should cause damage to them, putting them in a weakened state. With your weakened beast now captured, you can head back to the Sun and you should see the amount of weakened beasts you owned. To make one of these beasts, it will require mutagen and antigen blueprints sold from the Sun vendor. Mutagens determine the appearance of the beast's tail and the innate resistance or armor type of the beast. The antigen determines the appearance of the beast's head or neck and determines the first polarity type applied to the beast. Most of the community would agree that these mutagens and antigens are not very significant in determining how powerful your companion will be compared to different combination types. Most people make these companions based on cosmetic reasons and can be made useful based on their mods not their mutagens or antigens. If you care about making the best type of each companion, check the wiki for a comparison of each blueprint's effects, or spend some time doing your own research. Make sure before you buy these mutagens or antigens, you check which beast you are buying them for. You can read their description to see if they are used for Vulpaphylas or Predesaites, or alternatively, you can type in Sun's offerings, Vulpaphyla or Predesaite to see each of their respective mutagens and antigens. Once you determine which mutagen and antigen you want to make, buy the correlating blueprints, farm out the resources needed to build them in your foundry, and then bring them back to the Sun. The Sun will revive your companion for 5,000 credits. Once revived, this companion will need to be leveled just like any other companion in Warframe. When your companion reaches rank 30, you can guild them back with the Sun, who will require 10 Sun tokens and 5,000 Entrati standing points. Once gilded, you will be prompted to polarize a mod slot of your choice and name your companion. This will reset your companion's rank and require you to level it up again for it to count towards your personal mastery rank. The Helminth and Invigoration segment blueprints are also sold by the Sun. The Helminth segment, when installed, permanently opens up the infirmary room on your orbiter, allowing you to subsume non-primed versions of frames that, when absorbed, will let you take one of their predetermined abilities and infuse it to another frame of your choice. The Invigoration segment further expands the Helminth system by allowing the Helminth to provide temporary invigorations that enhances the stats of specific frames for a given week. From the Sun, the Helminth segment is available at rank 3 with the Entrati for 15,000 standing points, and the Invigoration segment is available at rank 5 for 30,000 standing points. To build these blueprints, it will require a mix of mining, fishing, Cambion drift resources, and beast tags from conservation, with the most tricky tags being the purple Velocipod tags for the Helminth segment. To capture these beasts, there is no echo lure or pheromone to easily capture them. Instead, they are generally found wandering around the Cambion drift. You can usually find them near the entrance or the middle of the map. It might take a while for them to spawn, but if you spend long enough with your tranq rifle out, you should find them wandering around in groups of 3 somewhere nearby. The blueprint will require 5 of these purple tags, and when tranquilized, each purple Velocipod will reward 3 tags, with resource boosters doubling the rewards. If you are into K drives, races are available on the Cambion drift similar to Orvalis on Venus. There are a total of 8 races, with only 5 being available on a given day. These races cycle and refresh daily, at the same time as daily tribute and standing limits refresh. Some of these races, when completed, will reward blueprints for an infested style K drive known as the Feverspine. To determine which races reward these blueprints, the Warframe wiki has a map and chart breaking down which races reward each blueprint. To build these blueprints, it will require a mix of mining, fishing, and Cambion drift resources. These blueprints can only be given once per day, and if you already obtained one of these blueprints, you will not be able to obtain additional blueprints until you have fully built and acquired said parts from your foundry. You can take these fully built parts and build them back at Rocky on Fortuna for 5,000 credits. If you are after collecting weapons and making Kitguns, many weapons and Kitgun parts are sold by the Father. You can buy Father's Kitgun parts and combine them with Rude Zood Kitgun parts back on Fortuna. Crafting these Kitguns is the same process as described in my guide video for Fortuna's open world Orb Valis. View that guide video for more information, or if you are interested in building Kitguns. Once you determine the Kitgun you want to make, you can either build them with Rude Zood or Father, which will initially cost 4,000 credits. Once your Kitgun reaches rank 30, you can guild them with either Father or Rude Zood, with Father requiring 25 Father tokens and 5,000 Entrati standing points to guild your weapon. Additionally, many weapons are also rewarded from the pool list from the previously mentioned bounties, isolation vaults, and Arcana Bounties. The isolation and Arcana Bounties also have a chance to reward damaged Necramech weapon parts, which are needed to build the 2 arc guns purchasable from the Necraloid Syndicate. To view their chances of dropping during these bounties, view the Warframe's wiki page on these reward tables. Additionally, if you have the platinum to spare, many weapon parts, blueprints, mods, and Cambion drift resources can be bought or traded between players on the Warframe.market site. If you've done any mirror defense missions on Mars's Tiana Pass and obtained crystal fragments, Otaks sells the frame Citron, weapon parts, and arcanes in exchange for these crystals. Each year, around the Halloween season, there will be a temporary event that will take place in the Necralisk called the Night of Naberus. During this event, the daughter will sell special items in exchange for mother tokens. Some of these items can include cosmetics, weapon blueprints, arcanes, and Zaw parts, only accessible during this special event. These items do vary though, making it not guaranteed that each year will offer the same rewards. Obtaining and participating in everything this open world offers can sound like an overwhelming task. The best thing you can do is to simply jump in and start exploring the open world. These open worlds are flexible in that you can make progress with their main syndicates by your choice of either fishing, mining, beast conservation, or bounties. The most important thing to keep in mind is to have fun with this and to not burn yourself out on this content. Take tasks one at a time, and by setting smaller goals, you'll eventually reach bigger goals. And finally, if you enjoyed this video or it helped you in any way, please like, share, and comment. If you want to see more guide videos in the future, make sure you subscribe to keep updated and notified when I release new videos. If I am missing anything covering the Cambion Drift, or you want to help your fellow players out, please leave some feedback. If you want help live, you can join me on Twitch every Thursday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thanks for watching, and make sure to check out my guides on Warframe's previous open worlds. Good luck and have fun in the open worlds. So when an adult was talking to me like, oh, do you need to use the potty? I just always thought, ew. Because my mom always said, oh, you got to take a grump, you know?
Did you tell him that grump?
My mom, instead of saying, oh, do you have to take a dump? Like, oh, do you have to take a grump? Like a grump.